Gallery. We're now at the ordinary meeting number 427. It's the 26th of September. This council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming and council's meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or a presentation will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The Chair and or the CEO has the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include incidences where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Today's meeting is being streamed live as well as recorded and published on council's website. Thank you. Could everybody please make sure their mobile phones are turned off, please? Now I'd like to open with the opening prayer. We pray to God to guide us so that the thoughts we have and the decisions made this day are in the best interest of the people of South Gippsland Shire. Amen. The South Gippsland Shire respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of this land, elders past and present, their spirits and ancestors. Thank you. May be seated. There are no apologies for today's agenda. Now I'd like confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a mover to confirm the previous minutes? Councillor Argento, and please, do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Is there anyone against? No. All those in favour of passing the previous minutes? That is unanimous. Thank you. I shouldn't have done that. That's all been done. Yeah. Included all in. Yeah. Oh, I'll just turn to the change. Councillors, please advise if there are any conflicts of interest for the agenda on today's topic. Councillor Brown, you are declared.
Madam Mayor, I have a conflict of interest in item 4.1.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. That is noted. CEO, Mr Tamlin, are there any staff conflicts of interest?
No, Madam Mayor, there's no staff conflicts of interest.
So we'll move on to agenda item 2.1, which is the grant application for the South Gippsland Business Associations, and it's a good governance toolkit. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Keel, do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Skinner is a seconder. Over to you, Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an application through Regional Development Victoria, Regional Jobs and Infrastructure Fund for $45,000 to be put with $15,000 from the South Gippsland Business Association for the Business Association's Good Government Toolkit. This will provide a program that will build the capacity within local business groups and strengthen the process in inducting new members into executive positions. It will start with face-to-face workshops, and it will be delivered in at least 6 of our towns across the Shire. The workshops will be recorded, and this will be an ongoing training session for most of our groups. With a lot of changeovers of our community groups, sometimes we lack a little bit of governance or some skills, so this will put together a toolkit that will be available for a lot of our groups where there is a little bit of a hole perhaps and just need a little bit of refreshing. So this is a program that is going to cost us about $60,000. So the regional communities plan is $45,000 and council will put in $15,000. The estimated cost will ensure the professional delivery of the program and results in ongoing resources which will be available for the business community. There's no further ongoing costs at all for council afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skinner, please.
Thank you. I'll just note a couple of extra things. So the council contribution is $15,000 and the funding stream applications for 45, so as Councillor Keane said, $60,000, and that money is already allocated, available in our 2018-19 budget. So a lot of the funds will be used in training workshops and facilitated workshops, and I trust that this will be an ongoing resource for our business association.
Councillor, it is a while.
That the legacy will be an ongoing resource for our community as our communities become stronger and learn better governance and strategic planning, business planning, etc. So that's more what I meant. So the resource really should be a legacy of this funding stream. Thanks.
Any speakers against, please? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I fully support the intention of the program. However, these resources already exist in the community. They're already available readily online, and I have a concern with using public funds, whether they be ratepayers' money or general taxpayers' money, when there's already a resource there that's not being obviously fully utilised. So I'd like to revisit this potentially down the track once we've just had a look at what resources are already there, and there are, as I've mentioned, quite a lot of resources. These skills are important skills. I'm not negating the importance of the skills here, but given that there are resources, there are toolkits already readily available about how to fundraise, how to do your roles in governance situations, how to do things in community groups. There's a lot of toolkits already available. A quick search, last week I found about 6 of them in one hit. I have concerns about I know it's not a lot of money. I know that it's $45,000 of external money, but it's still public money, still ratepayers / taxpayers money that is for something that already exists. So I'm happy to revisit this. I also haven't heard from groups saying that they've crying out for this. So I guess, while I'm concerned that we have, what's the right word, when succession planning is probably the most important thing I see in the groups that we've got, is planning for the people next to take on those roles. But given how to take on the roles, how to do the governance side of it, there are already resources there. The key thing I think we're lacking is potentially in the succession planning for pulling new people into groups if they want to continue on. So it's perhaps not just quite meeting it, but I'm not against the intent of it, but I will be voting against it because of the funds.
Any other speakers, please? Councillor Argento, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I fully concur with Councillor Edwards. There are a lot of toolkits out there, but are they the most modern and up-to-date ones? We need to look at our bang for our buck here, and $15,000 and it's coming from council, and 40 odd from 45 from Regional Development Victoria. These opportunities don't come by all the time, and I think our staff tell us that our communities need this skill. And in terms of delivering that with an up-to-date program, I think this is a good way to go. So I'd ask councillors to support this application.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers, please? I'll go to the vote. All those in favour, please. Councillor Argento, Councillor Skinner, Councillor Hill, Councillor McEwen, Councillor Rich, Councillor Brown, and Councillor Keel and Councillor Brunt. And those against was Councillor Edwards. Thank you. The motion was carried. Which one would I like to
Number 3.1.
3.1 is the land gather collaboration and leadership expression of interest. And I should have read this out before. The recommendation is that Council notes the consultation undertaken to engage the land gather community on establishing a new community collaboration and leadership structure. Point 2 was notes the outcomes of the consultation on establishing a new community collaboration and leadership structure. Point 3, continue to work directly with the land gather-based community organisation on specific projects. And number 4, work with the land gather-based community organisations to develop processes that will support regular information sharing between groups. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Hill is the mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Edwards. Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, but you're going to read out all the recommendations.
That's okay, Councillor.
Just asking the question.
Thank you.
So this report is disappointing in several ways, that the community doesn't want the same resource as, for example, the Round Table at Cornbarra or the MCDI at Urban North, but the community gets to choose that. We're not going to force anything on the community that they didn't want, and as was said at the time when this was first raised, this is not about forcing anything down the community's throat. So the community's spoken by lack of interest, apparently, and we will respect that. We will not be imposing a group similar to those other ones in Leongatha. Now, I was a bit disappointed in the content of the report and the fact that I've had more people in the community who have expressed an interest in this, and yet less people turned up to these meetings. So it's very disappointing that I'm hearing reports that people were actively dissuaded from turning up. Now, it's not democracy in my opinion, and as I said, it's very disappointing that that behaviour occurred. However, the outcome is as it is. We will not be forming such a group. Now, going forward into the future, Leongatha does need a plan, does need a vision, and without an organisation to represent the whole of Leongatha as such, I would expect that the council will have to come up with such a plan in the future and put it out to the community for consultation. That's the way it's always done in the past. I was hoping this time the community would be able to drive that process, but they can't without a group that represents the community. And that's very disappointing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to commend the Leongatha community on doing the great work that they do, and there's a number of community organisations in Leongatha and they are excelling in their leadership abilities, and we've just seen the Daffodil Festival, a fantastic collaboration between numerous groups in Leongatha, led by members of the Chamber of Commerce, but certainly involved numerous groups across the whole town. You know, they have spoken. This, I think we just accept the report as it is. And, you know, if things change down the track, then that's up to them to come to us and ask for that help. We are there with their hand at the ready, but not pushing it on them. So I'd just like to commend and congratulate the great leaders that we have and encourage them in Leongatha. Thank you.
Are there any speakers against? No speakers against? Are there any other speakers? I attended. Did you want to speak, Councillor? I attended these workshops and we allocated $5,000, and the lack of people that attended or interest in attending ended up we only had to spend about $1,000. But the community, the way this went, I think we've learnt a lot, and we've learnt not to offend very good volunteer groups and communities with. And the history behind this is quite how we got to that point in time. You don't force, you work with your community, talk to them, and you can come out with a good outcome. And I think they've spoken now. Hopefully, I had to go and speak with that community the other day and hope to further work with them to get that trust back into council again. Thank you. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Skinner, please.
Thanks. I agree with Councillor Edwards that the Chamber or Business Association does a fantastic job. They're got runs on the board there. Just a further point about engaging with our community. We do have a really well-resourced community strengthening team, and so they do work with all other groups of the community. But I just wanted to say that not everything has to be an organised group. So there are lots of voices in our community that we need to allow creative processes to engage with, because whilst we do have strong volunteerism in those organisations, there's plenty of other avenues for participation and contribution from all of the community, and perhaps that might be seen in the development of the direction statement for Leongatha. But I hope that we've got mechanisms to encourage participation from all people, not only groups. Thank you.
As we've had no speakers against, all those in favour, please, of accepting this report. That is unanimous. I'll go to 3.2. It's public transport consultation improvements, and the recommendation is that Council advocate to all the local political parties and candidates nominated in the 2018 Victorian State Government election and Transport Victoria to develop a local bus service plan for South Gippsland based on key themes from the recent public transport consultation. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor McEwen is the mover and Councillor Rich is the seconder. Councillor McEwen, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The South West Gippsland Transport Group approached Council about the absolute lack of local bus services in the Shire, and Council agreed to run a joint consultation with the community. Currently, if you look across Victoria, there are 30 communities that have, those council areas, have a local bus service. So if you look at, and I'm not having a go at our colleagues in Gippsland, but Churchill with 5,000 people has a local bus service. Lakes Entrance has got a local bus service with about the same population. Matthew's got a local bus service with the same population. Bass Coast, our near neighbour, and again, this is not about envy, it's just about saying that we're not being treated fairly. There are 8 routes in their shire with 27 daily services. We are losing probably between $2 to $3 million a year of state funds where, in effect, our residents are paying for bus services at other shires, or part thereof. The good thing about this consultation was it was quite comprehensive. We had 150 high quality submissions from various stakeholders. The fundamental issue that people were saying is that we need to have more bus services going to Melbourne. Another 2 a day would allow people to get to work and come back from work. At the moment you can't, because of the timing of bus services. There was also a suggestion of 2 on the weekends so that people could go down to Melbourne for a social event or the footy and be able to catch a bus back. At the moment they can't. There is another one that is really important, is that we haven't got enough cross-regional services from Wonthaggi to Latrobe Valley. This is really important because our educational bodies are over there, the universities and training opportunities, and young students can't get to them easily with the current bus service systems. And there is also hospitals and courts and other public matters. The other issue that came up, and it's a very difficult issue to deal with, is there are local transport issues across the Shire, whether it's in Port Franklin down that end of the Shire and how people get around, or whether it's Phoenix Bay, which doesn't have a service, and Tura, or whether some of the smaller towns. There is a concept of a flexi-bus service, which is being run in Mount Macedon. Basically what it is a minibus. It runs on a semi-fixed route, but you can ring up and book it and it will come to a street near you. I think that might be something that's worthwhile looking at, because at the moment, unless you happen to be on the main route, and even then it's only a limited number of services a day. So this is an election year, I understand. So hopefully we'll be able to argue with hopefully we'll be able to argue with the candidates and the political parties that they really need to start to look at having an equitable and fair investment in local bus services for South Gippsland.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Councillor Rich, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. One of the key things that I would like to help assist is to bring greater funding from the state government to our local region. And when I first joined council, I'm a member of South East Australian Transport Strategy on behalf of the council. It became quite apparent that we don't have our reasonable level of funding when it comes to public transport services. And when you start thinking of the common sense of public transport to facilitate families, to facilitate work, if somebody at the moment would like to go and have a swim, or the children who are 16 or 17 at the moment, a parent has to drive or take part of their day to go all the way down and then come back. So in terms of work, social, community engagement, I think that this is particularly important. Now, one of the great questions and the difficulties that was always presented is to do with what happens if you put in a traditional bus route and that bus route doesn't get utilised, yes, you pay the contractor for X number of months for the next year than an empty bus. Now, I must say that technology is moving along, and it is our responsibility to have a look at what is available to us, to be able to see how we can mitigate those things. I mean, in the transport industry, Uber has made a massive difference to the taxi industry, and that is through the use of technology. And I sit there thinking to myself, and part of seats and part of the conferences that we've looked at, as Councillor McEwen mentioned, is you have a telebus, which will eventually become possibly an Uber-style bus where you can see where the bus is and you can press, I'd like it to pick me up. And at the same time, we have to look after the range of ages. Some people don't have smartphones, so it will be a telebus. They still go on the old-fashioned concept of a landline and a phone call, which a lot of people are moving away from. So I commend the council for doing the consultation process, because I did attend a number of the drop-in sessions, and look, it's sometimes difficult to get people to believe that we may be able to get public transport, but certainly if we work together and we present a united, aligned front, then we have a greater chance of attracting funding which is our due to our region. So on that basis, I implore my fellow councillors to support this motion and to continue to work with and hopefully have a flexible and adjustable stance towards public transport which looks to give the community the best possible way of moving about, especially when you take a lot of other things to do. At the moment, car usage is very high. If we can reduce that, there's also public transport vehicles which are currently being used, oftentimes because we don't have public transport within our borough. We use a public patient transport vehicle. And this is at a very large cost. So once again, it's about trying to find the most efficient and effective way of getting the services to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Are there any speakers against? Thank you. The main part of this is to advocate for the recommendation is to advocate to the local political parties regarding the transport, and that's the findings that were third. If there's no other speakers, I'll just go to the voters. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll give Councillor Brown an opportunity to leave the room before we continue. Councillor Brown has declared a conflict of interest. 4.1 is consider the submissions and determine the proposal on the sale of the reserve 8 Barney Road, Foster. And we have a recommendation. The Council notes the recommendation of the Special Committee of Council held on 15th of August 2018. And we have heard the following submitters speak to their submission regarding the proposed sale of 8 Barney Road, Foster, which is Deirdre Morgan. 2, having considered the submission in confidential, which is a confidential attachment, the recommendation sells the land in accordance with Section 189 of the Local Government Act 1989, known as 8 Barney Road, Foster, being the land described in Certificate of Title, Volume 11399, Folio 545, to the adjoining landowner on the western boundary for not less than a valuation obtained not more than 6 months prior to the sale. And B, authorise the adjoining landowner to proceed with the removal of the reserve and amendment of the annexes in accordance with Section 23 and 24A of the Subdivision Act. Point 3 is provides the following reasons for its decision. And A, the drainage concerns of the submitter would be addressed by the developer via a planning permit conditions determined by council engineers, so that the construction of the drainage does not adversely impact on the adjacent residential properties. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Argento is the mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Skinner. Over to you, Councillor Argento.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We've followed our processes in regard to the sale of this land, like we do with all sales of lands, and in regard to this one, it's just an oversight in regard to drainage that will be addressed by the applicant purchasing back this portion of land. As you mentioned, we've spoken to a submitter in regard to this and her concerns, and hopefully addressed all her concerns in regard to the drainage that will occur on that parcel of land. That's all I've got to say, Madam Mayor, is that you ensure that we follow the correct process in regard to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Thank you, Councillor Argento. Councillor Skinner, you wish to speak?
I don't have much more to add, but it was good to hear in our special council meeting from the objector about the drainage concerns, and I believe that those concerns, she was satisfied with those responses, and so I feel confident that not only have we followed procedures, but we've addressed those concerns appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Is there anyone against this motion? If there's no speakers against, I'll ask for all those in favour, please. That is unanimous. Thank you. And we'll get Councillor Brown back into the room then. I'll start again. I might start reading. He'll be here by then. Oh no, but he's moving. 4.2 is award the contract 186 Turramurra Railway Station and Community Hub Master Plan. The recommendation is the council, one, notes that there is 200,000 in the 18-19 Capital Works program to complete the master plan and concept plans. Number two is allocated an additional 150,750 excluding GST from the 5 million in the long-term financial plan, which was set aside for the detailed design and overall development of the Carramburra Community Hub / railway station site redevelopment, connectivity and access to the railway station site, to fund the detailed design component of the project. Number three is allocates a contingency amount of 10% of the lump sum contract price. And number four, approves the award of the contract, which is contract 186, development of a master plan for the railway station, design documentation for the community hub and railway station site. Number five, publishes on council website the successful contract and lump sum amount within 1 week of council's decision to improve the award. Contract 186 to allow sufficient time for the formal award of the contract. Number six, delegates to the manager of infrastructure delivery the power to approve contract variations up to the contingency allowance in the contract. And number seven, authorises the CEO to sign and affix the common seal of the municipality to the contract documents. And I believe we have a mover, and Councillor Brown has moved. That is the mover, and Councillor McEwen is the seconder. Thank you. Up to you, Councillor Brown.
So Carramurra, we all know what's been happening with property prices and demand in the town of Carramurra. At the moment, there's a lot of positive things going on in that town, and I think the future is very bright for that town and the region as a whole. But we're now going on to the next stage of this process, and council adopted the Carramurra Revitalisation Project as a 2018-2019 priority project for development. A component of this is a master plan for the Carramburra Railway Station site, and it has three main elements: location and design of a community hub incorporating the railway station. Number two, accessibility in and around the site and connectivity with the main street. And three, location of the skate park and open space for future use. And what this motion proposes to change is having the concept and master plans now put together with detailed designs, which was which the idea was to have it done separately and the detailed design follow through into next financial year, but this is now to have it all combined into one piece of work. So we've had 17 tender submissions received after council followed its open tender process for its contracts, and this also included an evaluation panel to go through the 17 tender processes. So this is a very important project for Curran Borough. I'd ask councillors to please support this to take this down to the next phase of this journey. And for anyone, just to recap, also the Curran Borough Revitalisation is a 2018-2019 priority project, and it includes the community hub, railway station site redevelopment and the streetscape. So very important project for Curran Borough, and I'd ask councillors to please support.
Thank you. Councillor McKillop, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Curran Borough has turned a corner. There's now got significant new businesses and new investments occurring in the area, and I concur with my fellow Ward Councillor, Councillor Brown, that really good things are starting to happen there. This, when it's developed as a 9.4 hectare site, properly planned, it will become a major destination and attraction. It has got the most amazing views from that height, looking across the hills around there. It's got the railway station, which is quite unique. All of this will become a major hub and an area for the future development of Curran Borough for the next 20 or 30 years. I'd like to congratulate a range of people, the Curran Borough Round Table, the Curran Borough Business Association, the KCDA, and a range of individuals in the community have argued strongly for some time for an equitable share of resources, and they're getting that in spades now. So I think that this has been a fantastic effort. And may I also like to thank and congratulate my fellow councillors for supporting this revitalisation project. This is really important. Curran Borough has turned the corner. It will, in my view, become the new Dalesford this side of town because of its streetscape, because of the sorts of businesses that are going in there. It is a very attractive place, and some of the new businesses are already attracting tourists into the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against? No speakers against. Well, this is a step in the right direction that Curran Borough has been hoping and wanting to get this next step done, and I don't think we've let any grass grow under our feet with awarding this contract, and I believe very near to doing the deal on the railway land and being able to access that. Now, it's not only just this, we've got a skate park in Curran Borough that's been awarded grant money, also money through the 50,000 through the community budgeting program, and they'll be able to get there. It's the money's there to do the skate park, it's just where does it go. So this design will allow that to go, and that'll be one of the first steps out of this. So it's really quite exciting to see this land planned, keep and one of the, no doubt one of the constraints in this will be keeping the railway land open, the corridor open. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the outcome of this plan. I think it's a great step for Curran Borough. Thank you. There's no speakers against. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Oh, we have 4.3. Is it up as you wish? Yeah. Grant application Venus Bay Jetty Development. The recommendation is that Council is proposed to submit an application for $100,000 to the Victorian Fisheries Authority Better Fishing Facilities Grant Program for the reconstruction of the Venus Bay Fishing Jetty. Applying. Wait just a moment. The recommendations.
The recommendations.
Yeah, please, thank you.
There we go.
Note that Council's contribution of $100,000 is available in the 2018-19 annual budget for the Venus Bay Fishing Jetty reconstruction project will be determined in the December Capital Works Program review. Yeah, item 1, we've changed this. It's now 100,000 available from that grant funding, and I'm sure our mover, Councillor Skinner's across this, and will explain why we've gone to 70 to 100. Is that okay, Councillor Skinner? Thank you. And you're the mover, Councillor Skinner is the mover, and who's the seconder, please? Councillor Argento, thank you. Who's the seconder? Over to you, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you. I'll just clarify that the recommendation is that council applies for an application for 100,000, as in up there on the screen, to the Victorian Fisheries Authority Better Fishing Facilities grant program for the reconstruction of the Venus Bay Jetty. And that further to that, all the way through the report, the $100,000 will be reflected in all the other pages of the report. The reason for the additional amount of money was, well, firstly, the jetty is an old wooden jetty located in the second estate in Venus Bay. It's serviced the community for about 20 years now. It's actually pretty gorgeous, but is declining. So in response to community concerns, the council officers went down and had a look at the repairing some of the railings and doing some painting works on the jetty, and at that point realised that they needed to have a more structural assessment, which came back. They did a level 3 bridge assessment of the jetty and found that it was not meeting its load bearing capacity, and the recommendation was that the jetty be closed immediately to the public and that progress be started to replace the jetty. The jetty is critical infrastructure, recreational infrastructure in Venus Bay. It's the only it's the only boat launching area in Venus Bay, and it also provides a beloved fishing area. The Venus Bay Angling Club is located just nearby and runs regular fishing competitions that engages not only residents and but visitors to the area can come from far and wide. Council's liaised with the Venus Bay Angling Club on the potential design for the new jetty, and so in those consultations, a floating pontoon that goes tidal area, so that goes up and down with the tide, is the best option. Based on some feedback from the director, the cost was slightly more than was estimated at first, and that's why the cost has gone up to $200,000 for the project. In principle, support's been given for the application to the Victorian Authority, so that's $100,000 from that authority, and council will contribute $100,000 to the project. That is available in the 2018-19 budget. So we do have that money in the Capital Works program. I've been very impressed with council officers and staff who have responded very quickly to this situation, the safety of the community by closing the jetty off and really quickly working to replace the jetty. Coming up to a summer season where Venus Bay becomes one of the largest townships in the Shire, it's really important that this work is undertaken as soon as possible. Councillor Purin just mentioned equitable share of resources for Korumburra. Whilst it's only $100,000 from the Capital Works program, I think the Venus Bay community will be very thankful to see this progressed as soon as possible. And without putting a date on it, we're hoping that it will be able to be done hopefully by summer, maybe. So I would urge my fellow councillors to support this application for grant funding and our contribution to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Councillor Argento, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to concur with the comments of Councillor Skinner. Although it's not just Venus Bay residents who will be able to utilise this, it's a whole of community approach, and it brings in lots of tourism and benefits to the whole community. It is unfortunate, I should say the whole Shire as well, it's unfortunate that some of these facilities are now reaching their use-by dates, and no doubt there'll be more along the coast that will need replacing in due time. We are fortunate that the government has allocated 46 million over 4 years to deliver a range of commitments, and I believe to target 1 million program to grow recreational fishing in Victoria, and through Victorian Fishing Authority we're able to access these funds, hopefully. In order to ensure that we keep that tourism coming down to our areas, if it wasn't there, our tourists would move on to the next town and the next town, and our Shire would be a bit poorer for it. So I'm grateful that the allocation is set aside, and the communities can grow and employ local people in their towns to ensure that we keep getting that usage of these jetties. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Argento. Are there any speakers against? Are there any other speakers? No. Look, it wasn't very long ago, I'd have to give Councillor Skinner some credit for this, that she was waving the flag that this jetty didn't just need a paint, it was about to fall in. So whether they stood on it or seen that it wasn't too good, I don't know. So it hasn't been long. We do have to get the grant, and I commend our officers for seeing that you can get up to 100,000, and possibly we'll get to that. We do have to get that grant funding, whether it's, let's hope it's before Christmas. We do have some we've had some very good success just recently that we'll mention in reports later, Councillor Skinner. So if there's no one against, I'll put it to the vote, please. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. Point 1 is the draft 2017 annual report, the report of operations, and are we moving that possibly?
Yes, I'd like to move that in block 5.1 and 5.2, please.
You want to put together? Has anybody got any objection to putting 5.1 and 5.2 is the unaudited financial statements and performance statement? Has anyone got any objection to moving those two together? Councillor Keel is moving the two items in block, please, and Councillor Edwards is seconding. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Keel.
Not ready yet.
Oh, well, I should. No, you'll be right.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to get the notes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd like to firstly congratulate our staff on a fantastic document. This is really amazing, and they have done a fantastic job of doing this. I won't prattle on with all of the figures and stuff there. I will just mention a few things. Some of our achievements have been the Foster Streetscape. I'll also take into account a little bit of the message to the Minister from the CEO that is included in here, and it does go on to say the Foster Streetscape, Anderson Street Town Entrance at Leongatha, much of the work in rebuilding the Long Jetty at Port Welshpool. Many of our most exciting projects are still in the planning stages though, and some of those include the Great Southern Rail Trail extension, of course the Movie North Pool refurbishment, the Curramborough Community Hub, and the rest of the Leongatha Revitalisation Project. This year we've also had the benefit of our Arts and Development Officer, which has been the first time that we have had this officer, and through that officer we've also put in an Arts and Artefacts policy. We've had $227,645 has been received by various community groups around the Shire to promote their projects. $35,000 has gone out in emergency grants, and $26,000 was received by Creative Victoria for the small grants funding program. $2.4 million has gone into the Black Spot Road projects, where Lock, Poorong, Tura, Wild Dog Valley, Leongatha and Tarlangoa have benefited. We're working towards our shared services. This year we only had a 2% rate increase not the state government rate cap amount of 2.25%. We've had 12 footpaths costing $645,000, which covered Foster, Moving North, Poowong and Leongatha. We've adopted various strategies and policies during the year, including the Paths and Trails strategy and a community engagement policy. We'll go back again to the CEO's letter to the Minister. In the last 12 months has seen us deal with something unprecedented in the history of South Gippsland Shire Council, and that was the appointment of a municipal monitor to oversee the activities of council. Council is also committed to improving the gender gap by hearing about and understanding the personal experiences and impacts of gender inequality on both women and men in our organisation. This year, Council implemented gender equality workshops to facilitate these discussions, and Council staff added a gender equity banner to their emails to demonstrate their support. I commend this document to everyone, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's an amazing document, and while we think we probably haven't achieved anything this year, once you read the document, you realise all the things that we have done. So again, congratulations to the staff on an amazing piece of work. So I encourage everyone to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, please. Thank you, Councillor Keir.
Thank you. I'll speak on the financial side of things, given that we're moving both of these in block. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council's financial position continues to remain sound. The operating position, Council achieved an operating surplus of $7.5 million in 2017-18. Surplus continues on from a strong surplus from the prior year of $12.86 million, with both years benefiting from the Australian Accounting Standard requirement to recognise the grants commission allocations in the year that they are received rather than the year to which they relate, with 50% of the 18-19 allocation received in advance and recognised in 2017-18, and an additional 50% recognised in 16-17. The adjusted underlying surplus of Council after removing non-current capital grants, cash capital contributions and non-monetary capital contributions is a surplus of $1.53 million or 2.4% when compared to adjusted underlying revenue. The ratio is a slight decrease to the prior year, result of 6.9%. Again, this indicator is impacted by the Australian Accounting Standard requirement to recognise grant income as revenue when Council receives the grant. Sustaining an adjusted underlying surplus is critical financial strategy that provides capacity to renew over $500 million of community assets under Council's control. Note that the comprehensive result, which includes asset revaluations, was impacted by a change in the valuation methodology for infrastructure assets, which resulted in a decrement of $6.5 million in the valuation. The amount was offset against previously recognised asset revaluation increments in the asset revaluation reserve within equity and had no cash or operating result impact. Liquidity. Cash, that includes cash and cash equivalents and other financial assets, has increased by $3.4 million from the prior year. The working capital ratio, which assesses Council's ability to meet current commitments, is calculated by measuring Council's current assets as a percentage of current liabilities. Council results of 310% to 282% to 2016-17 is an indicator of a satisfactory financial position and within the expected target band of 100% to 300%. Overall net assets and therefore equity increased by $0.9 million. Just some extra comments I'd like to add to that. Obviously, we are in a strong financial position, which means that it gives us opportunities that perhaps other councils couldn't consider. But at the same time, I just want to reiterate, obviously, the stance that I genuinely always have in that our requirement to be obviously very prudent with ratepayers' funds and to consider needs first. And there are a lot of people, obviously, who are feeling the pinch in different ways, and so for us, it's never council. I always see it as it's ratepayers' money. It's not, it's not a bucket somewhere that is it is their money that we are spending on their behalf, and the reverence to that I think is very important. That we always ensure that we are delivering what they want in the most efficient and effective way possible. And so we, given that we are in a strong position, that's great, but we need to keep that cognizance going forward of as lean as possible operations to deliver essential services. Thank you.
Are there any speakers against, please? There's no speakers against. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Hill, please.
Yes, we are in a very strong financial position. We have been for about 5 years since it was discovered in the previous council we had a lot of money lying around. Now, we have about 15% of our revenue, 15% of our revenue is surplus. That is a staggering amount of money to have a surplus at the end of the year after expenditure. Working capital ratio, which a lot of people won't understand, the working capital ratio is a ratio that gives us an indication of how much money we have and how easy it is for us to fund our expenditure going forward. Now, 4 or 5 years ago in the previous council, we would have working capital ratios around 1, 1.5. And they were the guides. If we had 1 to 1.5 for working capital ratio, we were doing fine. We've got a working capital ratio now over 3. We are rolling in funds. It is mentioned that our cash is reduced to 5.3 million this year, and if you read the reason is because we transferred it to investments. So the money's there. We have tons of money lying around in investments, there's cash, and we are charging the ratepayers in their rates higher than we need to. We don't need a 15% surplus every year.
Hallelujah, Bandy.
We don't need
please.
We don't need a 15% surplus every year. But it does show that this council is poised in the next 2 years to bring in some really efficient budgets. I've proposed already that if this council wants to, if it has a mind to, it can bring in 2 negative rate rises in the next 2 years. I've already done the work on the 15-year budget sheets at home. It is possible to do so without cutting any services. We are able to do that and give that to the community. I recommend these 2 reports here today, and to my fellow councillors, the opportunity that we have later in this year when the budget papers come to us, that we can do something quite revolutionary in this council for next year.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. What we're here today for is the annual report and the financial statements. And annually, Council must complete a report, which is a snapshot of our operations and submit to the Minister of Local Government. That is a requirement. And together with the Council Certified Performance Statement and the Financial Statement and Report of Operations, all those become the annual report and off they go. That report is available. I think there's 102 pages from memory last night, and that will be available in the library, I think, for public comment and inspection. It'll be on the website too, I no doubt. The report will outline Council's achievement against a Council plan. That's how we decide what we'll do. A plan is made, and our annual initiatives of what this Council wants to achieve. So they are set by the Council. So we do have advocacy for priority projects. And over the last few years, we've had something like $157 million for projects which we've got, which is funding we've got. Black Spur was funding 50 million, Northern Towns 43 million, Loch Kuong Nyora Sewerage 20 million, Along Jetty 10.8, which I believe is coming in under budget, and I think they'll do a little bit more there. Now the advocacy, which is interesting, 90% of council plan initiatives achieved or progressed, and 77% of planning applications were decided on within the time frame required. And of course, a lot of the ones that are not are because more information is asked for. We've made decisions like HACS, but we will not get out of HACS until such time as there is a suitable provider. But those decisions have been made. 81% of assessed grant applications submitted to state and federal program funding were successful. So, look, I'm happy to put this. I'm on the audit committee. They were happy with this report. and they see it as open, and this is the really basic workings where the money goes. So yes, I'm happy to put it to you all. And is there another speaker first? Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I concur with Councillor Hill? We have ample opportunity in this financial report to actually have rate reductions through time. We have in our council plan a 3% rate reduction. If you look at what we've done, and Councillor Hill and I advocated for this in 2014, the shared services model could save us $3 million per annum once it's fully implemented. We've also got, as we pointed out at the time in 2014, if you look at the level of rates this year, 0.7% of the rise, so while we've only raised by 2.2%, we've actually had a 2.7% rise in the overall rates of collected. What that means is we're already getting a bonus from growth in the Shire with 0.5% per annum of rates. That and other things that we can look at, like the digitalisation strategy and other things that are in Council's plan, if we follow a modern management approach, there is ample opportunities, as was worked out by the State Government Review on smaller councils in the Shire, that in fact, as you get towards 35,000 people, the load of cost per assessment reduces. That plus efficiencies mean that we should be planning to have a significant rate reduction over the next 5 to 10 years in a measured pace. But what this report is saying is that we've got a huge amount of money sitting in reserve, and we're in a very strong position, and we're able to move forward with a prudent strategy of reducing rates through time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Argento, wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, my fellow councillors aren't playing to the gallery today, given the discussion on rates. Most of the reserves we have, and we all know, are from grant funding that's coming early as well, that's allocated, that we need to understand where all that's going. We need to substantiate these figures, and that's why we're here at the moment, looking at the statements and performance statements, which are unaudited at this stage, which are due to go to Vargo to be audited to give us a better understanding of what reserves, if any, that we have. And that discussion will be made during budget sessions, which people can submit to in order to understand where our funds go and where they get allocated. So, yeah, I'll draw everyone's attention back to the documents before us and the wish that councils adopt these documents so they can go and be correctly audited. Thank you.
You are here, thank you.
Point of order.
So, do you want to order, please?
Yeah, the point of order is...
Okay.
Yeah, let me finish it. The point of order is that something Councillor Argento just mentioned...
Can you state the point of order you're raising? Can you name the point of order you're stating? Procedural. The clause, please.
Now, procedural 74.
Thank you.
Now, Councillor Argento just misrepresented that I was playing to the audience. I've said the same message for the last 5 years. And the message is that we can reduce rates. It is not a pie in the sky idea, and it's not something I've suddenly come to believe and talking about.
It's contradiction of opinion.
Oh, sorry.
74, Councillor Hill. And I'd like on that fact to say that Councillor Argento, you are correct. The $4 million extra in the income is advanced payments from the Victorian Grants Commission, so you are correct, Councillor. So there's Councillor Argento, you are correct. And Councillor Hill, I will not uphold that. There's not a contradiction of opinion. Thank you. All those in favour, please, of adopting these two reports. Sorry. Once I've said it. That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to 5.3, which is award contract for the 1887 supply and installation of the multi-function devices with ongoing maintenance agreement. And the recommendation is Was it different?
It is, yeah. It's a change.
Yep.
I don't have it here.
It's yellow there.
Thank you. This will be the recommendation. It's had a couple of,
A service fees, you know.
the service fee has been added to this. I can have not read it, so somebody can explain it when they introduce it. Thank you. Council approves the award of the contract 187 supply and installation of multifunction devices with ongoing maintenance agreement to Chris Humphrey Office Systems Proprietary Limited for their total device and options cost of $82,900 excluding GST and ongoing approximate monthly service fee of $6,392.50 for the initial 3-year contract period and 2-by-1-year extensions if awarded. So number 2 is authorises the CEO to sign and affix the common seal of municipality to the contract documents, and number 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to exercise the 2-by-1-year extensions of the contract, subject to satisfactory contract performance when that becomes law, and this being reported to Council. Do I have a mover for that recommendation on the board, please? Councillor Skinner is the mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Keel, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council serviced by a number of multifunctional devices, mostly printers, which are currently at the end of their life. So the council's procurement policy procedures have been followed, and tenders have been sought, and the tender evaluation summary has been adhered to, and consequently the contract will be awarded to Chris Humphreys Office Systems. With that minor addition to the recommendation of the service fee. So we're really just agreeing to that and to the CEO to fix the common seal and create the contract document and to exercise the 2-1-year options. The only other point I wanted to make on this was that we champion a digital strategy. So we do need to keep our devices up to date, functional. These include devices that are in our depots, so that we can have a fluid and responsive working crew and council officers who can respond in the field and in the offices. So this fits within or aligns with our digital strategy as well. So I'm happy to recommend that we support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor.
I actually have nothing more to say. Councillor Skinner has covered that beautifully, so I concur with Councillor Skinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against? Any no speakers against? I'll put this straight to the vote then. All those in favour? Yes, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. And so now we'll move on to councillor reports.
The procedural reports, item 8, section 8, which is 8.1. The renewal.
Councillor Wright, we're going over to 8.1, which is the procedural report, which is the financial performance report to July to August. Recommends the council on the 8.1 to 8.3. So okay, Councillor, we've got 8.1 is the financial report, July, August 2018. We've got the Assembly of Councillors at 2.8 and documents sealed, awarded or extended by the CEO from July 18th to the 24th of August. Does anyone have any objection to moving those in block, please? No one has any objection. Councillor Hill is the mover of moving those through. And now I'll have a seconder, please. Ask for a seconder for the 3 items. Councillor Rich, please. Over to you, Councillor Hill.
Just procedural. We did financial things, we assembled and talked about it, and we sealed the documents.
Councillor Rich doesn't wish to speak, so are there any speakers against? No speakers against, people sitting in procedural. So I'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Unanimous. Thank you. Got to catch up now. 9.1 is 9.1 request for leaves of absence. There's no request for leave of absence? No, we have none. Councillor updates, and I'll start with Councillor Argento.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Got me up there.
Sorry about that.
Yep, just last week, yourself and I attended an announcement by the local member, Harriet Shing. Just putting it up on the computer as we speak. In relation to a previous council resolution to apply for funding for the Tura swimming pool, and we were successful. So 250,000 allocated to the Tura swimming pool, which will go towards the car park, a child's splash pool, and various other bits and pieces. This is combined with council's previous allocation, which I'm just going to see in front of me at the moment. There we go. Okay, so just to clarify, member for Eastern Victoria Region, Harriet Shing announced the tourism swimming pool will be the recipient of a new round of funding. Infrastructure funding. The pool will receive 250,000 towards stage 2 development. Of course, council is funding stage 1 at the moment, which is the new change room facilities, which is progressing very well and I believe soon to be opened. And with this additional money, that will complete the project. So my congratulations to staff for applying for that fund, and for fellow councillors for approving that amount of money, which is good to see coming to a small town called Tura. And I also wanted to reiterate, I was mistaken when I spoke to the media in stating that the Tura pool receives approximately 19,000 visitations a year. I was soon corrected by the operators who said it was 23,000 and soon to be 28,000 after these works, so not far away. So it is one of our most visited pools, apart from the one here at Leongatha, and it is well patronised within the Shire and outside the Shire. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Argento. Councillor Skinner, please.
Excellent news. I'll just report on a couple of things. Over this previous month has been the annual general meeting for the Australian Coastal Councils Association, and I was pleased to see that there was a position paper, an advocacy position paper to both state and federal government to look at better resources and funding models to support our coastal communities that bear much of the impact of seasonal tourism and climate adaptation. So that's a body of all the Australian coastal councils, of which we are a member. There was also the final report released about the impacts of short-term accommodation on coastal communities. So we're very much in that space, and I was pleased to see that report. I attended the Stockyard Gallery Section 86 annual general meeting, so congratulations to all those people who step up and volunteer their time as committee members for our Section 86 committees who look after and manage our council resources. So this one's the Stockyard Gallery in Foster, marvellous gallery that has great exhibitions, but they've recently received a grant through the South Gippsland Shire Council community grants to remove outdated carpet and put in a wooden floor. And so there was an opening of that beforehand, which the Mayor attended as well. And the gallery looks amazing. It's really beautiful and it highlights the work on the wall, doesn't it? The carpet was detracting from it. So it's just taken that next step up in terms of a gallery space in our Shire, so I was really happy to do that. And then attended the council rep for the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation. So we had our board meeting over this last month. So we received our draft annual report, which looks amazing, and our draft annual budget for that. So there's some great things happening in the library space. I'm really proud to be involved in that. Thank you.
Councillor Hill, please. Councillor McEwen, please. Councillor Rich, do you have a report? Councillor Brown. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few things to note. I attended a Municipal Association Victoria MAV Tech Forum in Melbourne. And a couple of the things that I particularly took out of there, the Gippsland councils that were award winners at that forum, was the use of drones in their work and efficiency, and also the library options being used around Wellington in terms of school children, boys and girls being able to access the library services and their school logins from the public library. So after they've left school for the day, being able to access their school portals from the public libraries, and the collaboration between schools and council and libraries in that space. And I think that's worth some exploration. The GLGN, the Gippsland Local Government Network, was attended by the Mayor, myself, the CEO, the Gippsland Local Government, Councillor Gentle was there too. And that evening, the Gippsland Business Awards, I'd like to congratulate the finalists from South Gippsland, which was Prom Country Lodge of Foster, Country Garden Threads of Merby North, CPK McLaren Motorbody and Lee Gather, Blue Tree Honey Farm Dunbork, Refuge Cove Cruises Port Walshpool. I was very fortunate this month to participate in a program which I put an application for a scholarship early in the year, and they rang me up a couple of weeks ago and said, could you partake in this? And that was the Cranlana program in Melbourne, which is a study of philosophy, and it was extremely interesting. I won't bore you with all the details now, but it was chaired by, or facilitated by Peter Mayer and Carl Murphy, with a group of 20 people from across the country. Actually, there's people who've flown in from WA and from Queensland and New South Wales, and at a very low cost. I wouldn't have taken it up had I not won the scholarship, obviously, and I stayed at the CWA a few minutes walk away. But I was there as a councillor. I'd won the MAV's council scholarship for the year, and which was worth about $10,000. So that was quite an honour to be able to partake in something like that, with such an in-depth discussions on philosophy from ancient times through to now. PCRT on the 17th of September, I'd like to congratulate the members of PCRT in their ongoing good work. I did have a dabble at thinking about maybe partaking in the Vicar of Dibley last weekend, but I decided I can't put another thing in my plate, so I went along to the play read anyway. A couple of things I'd like to note. I was remiss earlier in the meeting for not declaring a conflict of interest, which I've written to the CEO and noted that in the item 3.2, public transport concentration improvements, which included as part of that paper determining a position of advocacy to state election candidates. So I did absent myself from the room. I've noted my error in not having declared a conflict of interest formally on that, and have written that. I am now an endorsed candidate for the state election. That came through about 10 days ago, that I'm now an endorsed candidate for the state election, and I should have declared a conflict of interest. So my apologies for my error in not declaring that. I did absent myself from the room, but I should have noted it at the start of the meeting. In line with that, I will be requesting leave of absence. At the next meeting, I'll be requesting leave of absence for the November meeting, which will fall during the period between when nominations close with the VEC and when the declaration of the polls takes place, which is expected to be from approximately the close of nominations from the 8th of November, so that would be the latest date that I would be requesting leave of absence, and the declaration of the polls is expected no later than middle of December. So just to clarify the position there, that's where it stands at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I believe once you realise you have got a conflict of interest, my memory tells me that you leave when you do realise that. I believe either the Act or saying, I have read it. Once you realise that and you do leave, it becomes apparent to you that that's quite acceptable. So let's not to get too excited there or worried. Now I'm going into reports. The Carramara, that's okay. She's asked me to come back to it. That's okay, Councillor. Yeah, definitely. We've had two good announcements this month. One's the Tour as Councillor Argento said, 250,000, and they can do their splash park, you know, the water play area, which is fantastic. The other one, of course, is the Carramara Recreation Reserve, which is money. They come and ask us for money. We give them money. They were allocated money in the community budgeting of about 175,000. Anyone that have been to the change rooms there, this grant coming under the women's change rooms. So they are ecstatic. I announced that at a district soccer presentation night, and you could have heard them scream from the main street. They had no idea it was a grant application. I think we may have put in at the same time as the Tour, and we weren't very long getting those grants. So Councillor Skinny, you might be arranged hopefully with your fishing under your fishing grant. KBA's AGM, Borough Brewery, the new business in Carramara, it was fantastic. You know, Carramara has got confidence is gaining confidence in that business sector, and I think that's fantastic. The group is very, I believe, very progressive, and the people of Carramara have good. They have confidence in that group. The district scouts I went to, there was an awards night there. It was the district scouts, and there was a young boy there that had they had a speaker there. There was a young boy there by the name of, I think it was Nathan, and he had a trampoline injury. And talk about a young, he's now a paraplegic, you know, they give him the 3%, and he said, well, a chance of walking again, and he said, well, I have to be in the 3%, well then don't I? I think we could all learn a lesson from such a great young man. It was really inspiring that night. I wish him well. It was a great night. They tell me it's often cold there, and the fire was that hot. We cooked us all, it was beautiful. But Stockgard Gallery with Councillor Skinner to see the results of a grant application to do new floorboards down there, and it certainly offsets their art displays. Fantastic. I went to the Historical Society dinner, which was, I was invited, which was the Giles Gannon and Dorothy Giles spoke at that and went through the history of the newspapers. This is 5 generations of newspaper and how they established and how long they've been going for. And that was an incredible story that they put on. But it is extremely important for us that one of our biggest things in history and finding what happened is newspapers. So it's one of the biggest things for our Historical Society. So just remember what gets printed, maybe definitely right. But the future. I met with the Minister Tim Pallas and Minister D'Ambrosio down at Prom Country Cheese, and wonderful businesses established down there, and certainly very well known to the Minister, and that was talking about the Coliseum Gas Moratorium. And we also at that time brought up wind farm issue just come out, so we spoke about that. So that's my presentation. I don't think I have any more on that. I'll go back to Councillor Keel, who would like to speak. Thank you, Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, today I have a very important councillor update for you. I draw your attention to the Honour Board, and you can see in 2016 I was honoured by receiving the South Gippsland Shire Council Australia Day Award for Citizen of the Year. This is a very proud moment for me, and one which I will cherish for the rest of my life. It's difficult for me to talk about myself. I'm not that sort of person. However, it is important to remind you all why I received this award, and this is what was said about me in the nomination. Currently President of Murboo Country Development Incorporated, Maxine has volunteered for the group for over 20 years and was instrumental in the development of Murboo North Market. This event provides the town with a regular stream of income from which many community events and facilities are funded. Working with and engaging community members are Maxine's strengths. She was the inspiration behind a recently built community-funded bus shelter. She works with Main Street traders during the Christmas shop local events, now in its 4th year, is a member of the Mardi Gras Committee, organises the annual Santa in the Park event, the music festival and Mind, Body and Soul event. As well as her commitment to the Murboo Country Development Incorporated, Maxine works with Prom Country Regional Tourism, Murboo and District Historic Society and Murboo North RSL, where she continues to be one of 2 vice presidents of the sub-branch. In this role, Maxine displays outstanding and inspiring leadership and drive. Her contributions have included ongoing fundraising, researching and recording details of local residents who served in World War I, arranging the acquisition of ceramic poppy tiles on the graves of World War I servicemen buried in Murboo North Cemetery, and leading the acquisition of military memorabilia. I was thrilled to receive this award and wanted to give back to my community further. People told me that I should become a councillor, so I ran in the election and now stand here before you today. Life as a councillor has not met my expectations. The Council Code of Conduct, which was adopted by Council on the 22nd of February 2017, has the following policy objective. Council's primary objective is to endeavour to achieve the best outcomes for the local community, having regard to the long-term cumulative effects of its decisions. It goes on to say, the conduct of councillors as they work together as a democratically elected team sets the tone of the organisation in terms of how others perceive the professionalism and integrity of the South Gippsland Shire Council. I've been working hard in my role as councillor and finding it very difficult to be effective when it appears to me that other members of council are not here to achieve council's policy objectives. All you need to do is look at some of the recent headlines in the local papers. Like the South Gippsland Sentinel Times on the 18th of May, police raid Menian address in Shire investigation. The South Gippsland Sentinel Times on the 19th of June, Minister calls time on councillor conflicts. The Star on the 11th of September, councillor's company takes council to VCAT. The tone being set by the council with headlines like these is certainly not what I had in mind when putting my hand up for the election. I find my effectiveness to contributing to the community is limited. I find this extremely frustrating and demoralising, as my vision of contributing back to the community is certainly not being realised. In my first year, I was elected Deputy Mayor, and at the end of my term, I made a speech regarding what I considered to be unacceptable councillor conduct, and I made the following comments, and I quote, "I've had the highs of being elected, the overwhelming information bombardment, understanding the workings of local government against the private sector, the disillusionment, the continual harassment of fellow councillors, the constant tantrums by some councillors and behaviour that I have never seen before in my life. The huge amount of emails I certainly was not prepared for, especially when they are attacking my right to have an opinion. The lack of respect of some for my fellow councillors and staff is quite frankly embarrassing. The constant belittling, denigrating and ridiculing of other councillors must cease. I'm ashamed that I have not stood up sooner to defend those councillors on the receiving end of this bullying and ridicule. It makes me wonder why we have a code of conduct that we all signed this time last year." Unquote. This address to council was live streamed at the time and can be accessed from council's website. I considered my effectiveness and how I best contribute to the community by being a member of this council. Quite frankly, I believe I was achieving more through my membership of the various committees I engaged with prior to being elected as a councillor. I certainly have enjoyed the community involvement with the various committees associated with council. So I decided to give it another go for 12 months to see if things would get better. They certainly have not. After much self-reflection and consideration, I now provide notice that I am resigning my position as councillor, effective following the closure of this council meeting. This has not been an easy decision for me, and I thank all those people who voted for me in to serve you, and I hope that you will understand I'm doing this because if I was to continue on in council, I believe it would adversely impact on my health and well-being. Councillors, our pledge was to make the best decisions for the whole of the Shire, not just one area or the loudest voice, but for the overall good of the whole area. I'd like to pay tribute to the wonderful staff here at South Gippsland Shire. Natasha, Jodie, June, Rick, Brian, Anthony, Faith, you've all been very available and provided me at all times with any information that I needed, and I sincerely thank you for your support during my time here. Tim, you have shown me amazing leadership for the staff and for the council, and I appreciate all you've done for me. I'll leave with two major regrets. One being that I've let down the people of this Shire. Who had faith in me to elect me into this position. And I sincerely hope that you all understand my decision. The second regret is to you, Madam Mayor. I feel that I've let you down by this decision. Sorry. I know and will always value the friendship, advice, leadership that you have shown this year in what has been one of the most challenging years of a council ever. Your professionalism in dealing with these many issues is a credit to the person that you are, and it is easy to see why the community supported you in your role as a councillor and this year as mayor. I've truly valued your friendship, guidance and support, especially in this last year. Councillors, when you look back at the end of your term, I'll leave one thought for you, and that is, oh, thanks. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Sorry. I'll leave one thought for you, and that is to think about what could have been. I know that I will always wonder how much we could have achieved if we had worked together for the good of the community. Words are easy, but we all know that actions speak louder than words will ever do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kew. You're a wonderful person, and thanks for those kind words. I can't say enough. And obviously, being appointed the Citizen of the Year, you have great integrity and you are a wonderful person, and you have not let me down. I better stop. Thank you, Councillor Kew. I'll just adjourn for 10 minutes, please. Any other councillors? It's 3:45. Not going to do it too. Petitions. Councillor Keel, you've derailed us.
Committee
Sorry,
updates.
number 10, yeah, 9-3.
Committee updates. We have no committee updates. Urgent or other business.
Nil.
There's nil of those. Petitions and joint letters. Are there any petitions?
Yes.
Councillor McEwen has a petition, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a petition from the lead petitioner, Nicole Sage, of Sullivan's Road, Whitelaw, and I think there are 25 signatures, 24 of whom are from within the Shire and one is from outside of the Shire. The petition prayer reads that Council commits to improving standards of local gravel roads by 1. Improve their performance in compliance with Shire's own standards as outlined in the gravel road maintenance procedures in the Shire. 2. Support Council's planned service level review of gravel roads and roadside maintenance, test assumptions and report and findings to Council with a review, with the review to include A. Investigate how levels of service can be improved on unsealed roads. 3. Allocate sufficient funds in 1920 for an additional cycle of gravel road maintenance as proven in the past to reduce current road maintenance requests by 80% plus. 4. To reduce the customer dissatisfaction for local government roads from the current 55% to 30% of the condition of gravel roads in the Shire in the next 2 years.
2 years. We have a recommendation here, councillors, and it's that council receives and note the petition and it lay on the table until the matter is considered at the ordinary meeting of council, 24th of October 2018. A mover, please. Councillor McEwen's moved that, I believe. Do we have a seconder, please?
Oh, so it's only to receive the petition.
Councillor Edwards is a seconder, please. We're not supposed to speak on this.
No.
Thank you. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now we have 11.2, answers to previous questions on notice.
There isn't any previous on.
There is no previous questions for this agenda. 11.3, submitted public questions. Mr. CEO, has there been any submitted questions on this agenda? Over to you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I received 2 questions from Mr. Norton, who I do not see in the gallery. And where a community member has submitted a question but is not in attendance at the public question time, the question and response will not be read out. However, they will be included in the minutes of the council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We now will be going into closed session, and I'll ask the public and media to vacate the gallery, please. Thank you. And we'll go straight into closed.
I'll move it.
Move to go into close. Move as a seconder.
I'll move the motion to go into close. Councillor Keel, Councillor Edwards.
Let's get a vote of handing over the petition, if that's okay.
We're still in the meeting. Just give us a sec.
Yeah, vote to go.
Vote to go into
Closed
close.
session, please. Thank you. Thank you. That's unanimous.
No, you can adjourn. Just 10.
No.